We're seeing a disturbing trend recently, an increase in anti-Jewish attacks around the world. In the U.S., the Anti Defamation League said that during the 2 weeks of fire between Hamas and Israel, anti-Semitic incidents rose by 75% compared to the 2 weeks prior. That went from 127 reports to 222. And these aren't victimless crimes. Just a few examples. In New York, a Jewish man was getting off the subway and he was surrounded and beaten by a mob of pro-Palestinian protesters. They said, "Hamas is going to kill all of you," among other horrible things. Wasim Awada was arrested and released on bail, despite saying he would do it all again. In Brooklyn, a synagogue and a Jewish school were set on fire. One teen was put in a chokehold for refusing to repeat anti-Semitic slurs. And in Florida, a man dumped human feces in front of a synagogue twice. Online, during these same 2 weeks, the ADL also collected some 17,000 tweets with some version of "Hitler was right." And while the situation is extremely alarming, the alarm bells don't seem to be ringing. There's no mass movement of supporting the Jews, saying all Jewish lives matter or anything like that. I sat down earlier with my next guest to discuss why not. Joining us now is Charles Mizrahi, host of the Charles Mizrahi Show Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Right, and there's this recent poll by a Trafalgar group that said nearly 40% of Democrats are blaming Israel for the current violence. If you look at the Republicans, it's 42.5% blame Hamas, another almost 15% blame Iran. So there's this very wide split in the country in how they're perceiving this crisis.
Absolutely terrible. The Democratic Party is being taken over by the progressives. Those who are the centrists in the Democratic Party are staying silent or not speaking out the way they should be. Even President Joe Biden, who's been a friend to the Jewish people and a friend to Israel for close to 40 years, is doing the right thing, but had to go outside of his party and not really be concerned with his party by giving Israel more aid. And it's very, very, very troubling. It's something that the Republicans have been talking about for the past 4 years, mentioning and constantly how the left has been hijacked by the progressives. I shouldn't say hijacked. They're basically being led by progressives. And when you're led by these progressives who claim to be horrified at every form of prejudice, except anti-Israel movements and anti-Semitism, and anti-Semitism is the crudest form, you really see what is really driving the Democratic Party today. How could anyone in America, any freedom-loving person, want to support a terrorist group who just the other day, I believe I saw it on Sky News, the co-founder of Hamas was basically being interviewed and asked his thoughts, and he didn't mince any words. He basically said that this was Mahmoud al-Zahad being interviewed on Sky News. He said Israel has no right to exist, and that their strategy, Hamas's strategy, was to target Israeli population centers, which is a war crime, especially when you're using civilians and children to shelter and shield your missiles from the enemy. Where is that talk? Why isn't anyone mentioning that?
Be sure to watch the entire episode, now available exclusively at epochtv.com, a new completely censorship-free premium subscription platform, brought to you by the Epoch Times. See you there.